Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second our professional development series. This time, we are going to be discussing a tool that is going to be using for most of us who do academic research, and as Zotero. Today, we are very fortunate to have two experts on the subject, Britt Foster and Carol Doyle. I'm just reading the names as they appear on my screen. They both work for the Henry Madden Library here at Fresno State. And without further ado, I'm going to turn over the floor to them so they can tell us all there is to know about Zotero and how to use it as we conduct research.
Hi, we'll start you out at least. I'm Carol Doyle. I'm the librarian for several of the science departments and a couple of the departments in the Jordan School of Ag.
Yeah, I'm Britt Foster, and I am the liaison for the other departments in the College of Ag that Carol is not the liaison for, and also for Child and Family Science in the College of Social Sciences.
Okay. Oh, and I also have do a lot of the government information reference. So I know that's something that very often public health folk work with Jane, and some also work with me to find. So what we're going to do today is to give you an introduction to using Zotero. And we're going to share some things in the chat. Let me make sure that you have the Zotero guide here. This is the link to the Zotero guide. And it has, I think, probably everything we're talking about today and probably a few other things as well that we're just going to refer to for your information. That you can look at the guide, or we can, set up meetings later. Zotero is a citation manager. Some of you may have already worked with EndNote or some other citation managers. So basically what they help you do is gather and organize information resources for your research projects. And the really nice part is that you could also attach PDFs and other files to them, to the references, so that you have them kind of organized in your library. You can organize them into, basically folders, groups where you can find things more easily. And then it also integrates with your, with Google Docs and with Word, which we'll show you, so that while you're writing your papers, you can use Zotero to format the in-text and the reference list. So and there's a lot of different styles there's several that come kind of with it when you open it up, and then a huge number more that you can very easily import to use if they're not in that shorter list. APA, for instance, is in the shorter list, as is the American Medical Association's citation style, which is, I think, the other one that's mostly the other main one that's used in some public health journals. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. See what I can find here. See where I am. Okay, so you see the Zotero guide? Yes, good. Let me move things around so I can actually see the controls and see my screen here. So this is the Zotero guide with the address I gave you. The other guide that I want to give you right away is Jane McGean's public health guide. And I think most of you probably know.
Carol.
I've lost myself here. Yeah.
Carol, I'm sorry. Is there any way you can enlarge it a little bit, because it's small?
Okay, just
and we cannot see it.
I kind of lost my lost my control here. There we go. So this is the Zotero guide, and then Jane McGee's public health guide that I was going to paste in. For some reason, let me try this over here just a minute. I sort of lost my Zotero screen.
pop it into the chat, Carol, if that would help.
Okay, I had to make a separate chat thing there. Sorry. I lost it when I went to full screen. Okay, so I think I have things sorted out there. So there's Jane's public health guide, and I need to move the controls again so I can see what I'm doing. And she links to things like the journal articles. She links to citing sources using the APA format, etc. There's another guide that's the citation help guide. Do you see that one? Okay. And with this one, it has some links to the AMA guide, American Medical Association guide, which if you go to the citation help guide over on the left table of contents, it says other styles. And then the American Medical Association is listed one. We have the full style guide here, the 10th edition. Right now, the Journal of the American Journal of Public Health, I think is what it's called, uses AMA 10th. So that's why I thought you might want to know about this. There's some quick citation examples here, but this is the entire style guide if you need to know that. So that's just a little bit of background guides and links to go to. Okay. So what we're going to do is, you see the table of contents in the Zotero guide. We're going to look a little bit at Zotero. I'm going to show you my Zotero if you want to open up yours. Mine will have things in it, yours may not at this point. And I'll sort of show you the menu and toolbar and what the contents look like. And then we're going to look at adding items to your Zotero library, a little more about organizing things, getting the full text, and then using it to cite and create bibliographies. Okay, so let me go to my instance of Zotero. And I'm going to go to a blank library, which most of you probably have, right here. So right now, here's the menu up on top. There's the toolbar here. If I click on my library, like when I first went in, it was showing you, you notice I have a lot of stuff here. And over on the left, my library, this is showing me all the contents I have in my library. I can also organize them into folders for different classes and groups, et cetera, that I've worked on. And I can do a subfolder. For instance, for Bio 250, there's the certain project, et cetera. For Chem 160, there was algal biofuels project. So I can make different levels of organization. Okay, and I'll show you how in a minute, because we're going to do that before you start putting items in there. Okay, so all my different things here. Duplicate, if I had duplicate items, unfiled, things that I haven't put into groups, because mostly I'm going to get rid of them if they were just for classes and not my own use. Farther down, if you have group libraries, I have set up a group library. This is where you can share your library with other people. You share basically, what it does is create a separate little library. You're not actually sharing the contents of your library. It creates a separate library that you can share with different people you're working with on a project. So that's where you would do it. So any shared libraries appeared here. And then if you set up any RSS feeds from specific journals, there's a journal called Algal Research, and I have the RSS feeds. So anytime there's new articles, I get them here. I can look at them and decide if I want to move them into my folder. Click on it, go to the site, look at the article, download the article, etc., and decide if I want to make it an actual reference, and then get rid of the ones I don't. So that's just a nice kind of way to keep up to date in literature if you have a core journal or a core source. Going back to my library, notice here that things are organized. They give you the title, a creator, which is author in this case for most of the articles, the item type, journal articles. I have a web page. I have a book section, so it tells you what it is you're looking at. The publication, so it's the title of the journal. Okay. What I like to do is it's showing me when I click on an article, it shows me over in the right-hand column information that came over from the source or that I typed in if I was manually entering something. The information that came in about that article. And this is what it's going to use to cite. It gives me notes, it gives me tags, etc. I don't like this view because it squishes everything up. So what I do is I go up to the menu where it says View and the Layout Stacked View. And it puts that right-hand column down here. I can see more of the information about the articles or the resources up on the top. And then I can see more information and more easily digestible, for me at least, format down here. This is the information about the article that came over. This is if there were any notes that I put in, I can put notes here. Sometimes tags come over. These are often the author supplied keywords that might come over from a database. Otherwise, you can add, take some of these away or add tags if you want other keywords to pull things out. Nothing in the related tags if you wanted to associate some other things with it. So that's sort of what it looks like about what came over about an article from the databases or from a PDF that I imported or maybe that I entered myself. Notice when you have a long field, there's ... means there's more going on here. If I click on that, I can see the whole abstract. Okay, then shrink it up again. So that's information about the articles. The title, I can look at it alphabetically by title, click on it again, and I will get a reverse alphabetical order. Same thing with the creator. If I want to look at it alphabetically by the authors, I can do that. Item type, if I want to organize it by item type, the year of publication, the publication name. This just shows that there's an attachment, and I can see which ones, for instance, this one, where I have attachments, including the PDF of the article. Kind of hides under the main part here. And you can also tell just by seeing that there's a sideways arrow here. If I open that up, that means that there's things associated with that. For instance, let's say closed loop. There's my full text, my PDF. Over on the far right, right next to the little paperclip, and it's very small on my screen, it's probably minuscule on yours, there's like a little page with the header. If you click on that, it shows me the different things that I could have displayed up here. And I very often say add date. I added it to the database, because then if I added a bunch of things that I don't really want for a class, I can go in by date and kind of quickly get rid of things. Or if I just entered a bunch of things and I didn't sort them out to begin with, it just helps me pull things out. So you can add or take away different things up on the top that you don't want to see in the header. Okay. You can also move things around. For instance, if you want to see the year before item type, just take the column heading and slide it over. So you have a little bit of control of your desktop here. Okay. Over here on the left, there's a little folder, the little green arrow. If I click on that, that's going to let me add a new collection. So why don't you go into your Zotero libraries and create a collection for today's work, because you may or may not actually want to keep what you bring in today, and it'll help you keep organized, and also just to know that you can do this. So you click on the little yellow folder, enter a collection name, and say OK. If I click on a folder and then click back on, or one of the collections, names, and go up to the little folder, I can add a sub-collection for that collection. And it didn't do that. So I'm going to slide it into public health. There we go. I can also just move things around. So I slid paper into public health. Okay, there we go. If I left click on public health, I can add another new, so I can say paper 2. There we go. That was what I was supposed to do. Okay. So that's the adding a folder. This is if I wanted to add a new group to my shared group or a new feed. If I'm going to enter a new item, I can select the type of item. If I want to enter something by ISBN or the DOI or the PubMed ID, you can put it in here and it'll add it. We'll kind of look at some of these later. Don't really care about that. Can attach a file to an item you have. For instance, if I have something that doesn't have an article attached and I've downloaded the file, I can attach a stored copy of that PDF. Okay. And then over here, if there's something that I want to find the article for, I haven't already downloaded it, I can use the library lookup, Google search lookup, try to find it another way here. Okay. And then there's a sync, but we'll refer to that later. So that sort of gets you started a little bit with the desktop, what things look like, where things are, kind of play around with how you like to look at things once you start getting things in there. And I think that's all the introductory part that I wanted to give you. And Britt will now talk about getting some information into your Zotero library. I'm going to stop my share.
Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and start sharing. So, all right, so I've got my Zotero library up and open, and that's an important part to remember when you are starting to add things into your Zotero library. So you want to have that up and open. And then I'm going to go ahead and head over to the library website. And one of the things that's really important to remember for Zotero is to install that connector. So when we sent the information about how to install Zotero, there was the information on installing the desktop, but then there was also the information on installing the connector. And you can see here on my Chrome taskbar, I have this little icon. And when I hover over it, it says Save to Zotero. If you're not seeing this icon, go ahead and click on, for Chrome, it's the puzzle piece, which is extensions. For Firefox, I believe it's the cog for settings. And then you can manage your extensions and then just make sure that it's turned on. So once you're on the library website or on any other information site, right now we're going to start on the Madden Library website because I'm going to talk about some databases. You might go into a database, and I'm going to go ahead and go into our A to Z list, and then C for CINAHL, which is our Nursing and Allied Health, scroll past it, our Nursing and Allied Health database. And one of the things that's really nice about Zotero, especially if you've used any other reference managers before, like EndNote, is that the process for getting things into the databases is pretty much the same regardless of the information source, which is really nice. So say that you were in this database and you were doing a search, and I'm going to go ahead and just do a search for community health. Real broad sample search. And if you're following along, you might want to do the same thing, just so we can get some stuff to play around with in our Zotero library to see what the experience of bringing things in is like. And Zotero is nice because it gives you the option to bring in one article at a time or multiple articles. So for example, if we were looking at this particular article, this was an area of research that you were interested in, you could click into the database and you may or may not have noticed that the little connector changed from the icon for website to the icon to article. And so now when you click on the connector, it'll prompt you to save to your library or to any other area that you would like. And you can expand this by going to more. I'm going to go ahead and just save this to my library. You can also add in tags if you'd like, and then you can go ahead and hit done. And then when we slide on over to our Zotero library, we'll notice that there is the information about the article in our library. And then here is all of the other information about the article down below. And if we expand, you can see there's the EBSCO full text, and that's where our PDF is. So if the PDF is available and the database can pick it up for you, it'll just automatically grab it and attach it right from the get-go, which is really nice. If you want to add more than one article at a time, which is usually the way that I work for my own research practice, maybe I'll do a search and then I'll kind of go along and I'll think, okay, well, what is it that I'm interested in? What is it that I'm thinking about? I might go on and go ahead and create a whole folder of articles. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab 5 here so I have them. And in the different databases, how they create the folders can be different. But if you go here to folder view, now you'll see that there's all 5 of your articles. And in addition to having them come in through the connector, most of the databases also have an export option where you can select all the items that you want, click export. You'll often see that there will be like export in RIS format or export citations for Zotero. You can see Zotero is specifically listed here. And then you can just save and the database will communicate with your Zotero again to bring up your folder options. You can go ahead and hit done. And then when you go over into your folder, there will be all of the different citations we just brought in. So there are the 5 that I just added, which is really nice. So that's a good way to get a lot of articles in all at once. Okay, now sometimes when we add articles, it may or may not add in the information about, or add in it may not attach the PDF of the full text if it wasn't able to get it from the database. So you have a couple of different options here. One is to go back to the database, and while you're there and you have your whole list of citations you're interested in, see if you can go ahead and find it. So this was the brief training. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. There's my PDF. If the PDF didn't display, you can always use the Find It at Fresno State button, which will then take you back to the main library catalog to see if it can find the PDF of the full search or the full text of the PDF. And you can go ahead and download the PDF, in whatever way you normally are used to saving PDFs. So I'm going to go ahead and just save this one. It's going to download it for me. And then from my downloads, from my little icon here, sorry, to arrange my windows. Actually, this might make it easier. Just go ahead and bring up my Finder. And wherever your article ends up, you can just go ahead and grab that PDF and just slide it over to the citation. It'll highlight it, you let it go, and now it's attached. So now you have the PDF. And when you want to look at the PDF, you can go ahead and double click it. It'll open it up. And when it opens it up in Acrobat or whatever PDF software you're using to view your PDFs. And you can go ahead and make any changes to this PDF that you want using the different PDF software annotation features. So say you wanted to highlight or make notes or put digital post-its or whatever it is that you want to do, all that information will be saved on the PDF, and then those notes will be saved to that PDF that's attached to the Zotero record, which is again really nice because basically what Zotero is doing for you is it's putting the information about the article for citation purposes as well as the full text of the article plus all of your research notes all in one place, so you don't have like 70 folders all over your desktop that have all the different information in different places. So it makes it easier for you to be able to focus on reading and writing research rather than managing your citations, which is the point of a citation manager. Another thing that you can do, and this is outlined on the guide link that Carol showed earlier, but you can also set up Zotero to retrieve PDFs. So if you go to the Zotero function and go to Preferences, when you open it up, you'll see there's all kinds of different settings available here that you can customize and kind of play around with for whatever works for you. But if you go over to the Advanced there is the open URL with the custom, and then you'll see that there is a resolver there. And I think that the kind of out of the box Zotero tries to resolve it against something called WorldCat. So if that's already filled out in your settings when you open the preferences in Zotero, you can just go ahead and delete it and then paste this in. And I'm going to go ahead and paste this in the chat as well. And like we said, this is also on the guide. So if you want to get this set up, basically what is happening here is this is allowing the sort of back end of the library to communicate with Zotero. And if we can find the PDF, it'll attach it for you. So there's a couple of different, or give you the link to find the PDF so you can then attach it. So there's a couple of different options there. Okay. All right. Another option that you have is being able to add citations via your PDFs, which especially with our participants here, I know we've got a faculty member and some students. So if this is something that you've experienced before, you probably have, maybe like a good several dozen PDFs of articles on your desktop or in different folders or in different places. So you might want to take the PDFs of the articles that you already have and then add them into Zotero so you don't have to go back and find all of that information again. So say that you have a PDF. Not all PDFs will necessarily work for this. So say, for example, that your professor photocopied a journal article and then scanned that photocopy and posted it to Canvas. Well, the information about that article probably won't be attached to the article because it didn't come in from a database, right? It came from a copy, a scan. But if you get a PDF out of our databases, a lot of times this will work. So all you have to do is just find a PDF, and on your desktop or wherever you're keeping your PDFs, and then just drag it over to the library or the group that you want it to be in, and then there'll be a little bit of a lag, and then if the information about the PDF is available, then it will scrape that information off of the PDF and then create the Zotero record with all the information on it, as well as attach the PDF for you. So that's a really nice way to take care of a library of PDFs you maybe already have. And then for this particular discipline, I imagine that a lot of you are working with all kinds of different types of information. So for example, you might be working with government websites or documents from the CDC, or just lists and lists of different types of information. And on the guide for Zotero that Carol shared earlier, there is a list of the different types of resources that Zotero supports directly out of the box. And that includes things like videos, audio recordings, etc. You can also use it to capture data about websites. So for example, say we were on the Department of Public Health website, we were looking at their Community Mental Health Equity Project. When you go here, there's this little icon. Again, you can see that it's a web page with a snapshot. And so if you click this, it will go ahead and save this as a website. And it will also save a snapshot of the website as it looks now. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then, oops, I guess I closed my Zotero window. When you slide over to your Zotero, you can see there is the website. And then there is the snapshot with the link to that information. One of the challenges, though, is that it might not necessarily bring all of the information over about the document or the website that you need in order for the citation to be correct. So what you want to do is look at your style guide, APA, AMA, whatever it is that you're using, and then be like, okay, for a web page or a government document or whatever format the reference, the resource you're citing is in, look at that and be like, okay, on this form, this is the information that I need in order to have that particular output look correct for the citation style. So for example, here you can see that the title came over, but there's nothing about like the date. So for the date created, if we could find one on this, I don't know that there will be one on here, but say that we found one and it was 2019. So we could go ahead and just say 2019, and then it'll go ahead and save that information. So then when it goes to do the output, we know that that's correct. Okay. All right. Now, before we get into the fun part of talking about the output and how to get this to do the hard work of citation for you, I just want to check in with our participant here and see, do you have any questions?
Actually, so far, I seem to be following. So far, I noticed that, you suggested accessing the databases through the library. And I just wanted to remind whoever does this, because I tried it, and you're going to have to show that you're a Fresno State affiliated individual. So since we are working remotely, and just a little one step that you needed to log in. So I just want to let whoever is watching this video know this later on. The other one that I use quite often, Britt and Carol, is PubMed to conduct my lit reviews. How does that work? Because I usually go to their website directly rather than using a database through the library.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking that. That's one of the things that's really nice about Zotero, is that the connector is really good at making sort of like the connection or the guess about what it is that you're looking at. So, say that we were doing a search in PubMed. Again, I'm just going to do a really broad search here for a sample of that. So notice our icon right now at the top, it's giving me that folder icon, which is really nice because for some of the different databases and things, you can bring in a whole set of results. So like if we were to bring in this folder, it would bring up all these results, which we don't want to bring 400,000 things, nearly 400,000 things into our Zotero library, because that would probably crash it. But say we wanted to go ahead and look at this particular article. So when we click into the article, you'll notice that the little Zotero connector icon changed, and it changed from the icon for folder, which is the long list of results, into the folder, into the icon for an article. And so then when we go to click on it, you can see there is the information about the article, and then we could go ahead and just do the same thing and it will bring it over. And if you go through to PubMed through the library, which I didn't do just to, save a couple of steps for this purpose, and the full text is available, it will also connect the PDF for you. So it looked like it did go ahead and grab it off the website here also. So it's just very intuitive. It's very good about grabbing that information off of the website. So for PubMed and most other sites, the experience of bringing things in is pretty much the same. You just use that little connector icon.
Yeah.
Perfect.
The main thing about using going directly to PubMed versus using the A to Z list is if you go through the A to Z list from the libraries, it adds a little information so PubMed knows you're coming from Fresno State. And if the article isn't available open access, for free, you will have the link into the libraries, Find It at Fresno State. So if it's not something available for free and we have a subscription, that will make it link and you'll be able to get more directly into more content.
Oh, perfect. So it makes it a lot easier. I noticed too that as I downloaded, as following your steps, Britt, I see a PDF in my Zotero library. So does that mean that it actually automatically grabbed the PDF that existed?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's very good about kind of detecting it. It doesn't always, but I have found that it's pretty good. If there's a PDF to grab, it usually does find it.
Okay.
If it's an open access sort of thing or something it can see right in there, it'll put it in there.
Okay.
Oh,
Excellent. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the fun part of well, not that whole thing wasn't fun, but we all know managing citations in your document while you're writing is one of the challenges of academic writing, of research writing, right? Because you have to keep track of all of these things and where your information is coming from. One of the things about Zotero that's really great is that there are a couple of different ways that you can get your citations out. So one thing that you can do is while you're in Zotero, you can go ahead and choose a subset of citations. So you could choose, however many you wanted. Say it was the citations out of a particular folder, and you can go ahead and right click, and then you can create a bibliography from these items. And then when you do this, it brings up a menu option in which you can choose your citation style. For this purposes, I'm going to go ahead and choose APA, but you can also see AMA is listed here, and there's also managed styles, which will take you to the Zotero website, so you can find more citation styles, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of them for specific journals and based off of different established citation styles like MLA and those kinds of things. So you can kind of have that set up however works for you. And there's more information on how to do that kind of customization of citation style on the research guide. So for here, I'm going to go ahead and just choose APA. And so now it's copied the information from those items to my clipboard, and I'll go ahead and paste them into my document. And now there are those 4 citations, and they're arranged according to APA, which is alphabetical. You may notice that there are a few things that we maybe need to tweak or that are incorrect about that. We can go ahead and edit those within this, or you can make sure that your setup is looking good there. This is a really nice option for citing within documents or resource types that are not necessarily maybe research papers or kind of like longer term word processor documents. So like if you're doing a PowerPoint presentation or you're creating a poster for a reference, for a research conference, you could go ahead and just copy and paste the citation information out of your Zotero library and then put it directly into whatever document you're working on.
Okay,
but
so
you can,
maybe I missed
go ahead.
Maybe I missed a step, right? So I go to the Create Citation Bibliography. I selected the bibliography that is by default. And the output methods, am I supposed to copy to clipboard?
Yes.
That's what I did wrong. Okay. And let me go back to the document. Paste. Perfect. So, okay, I have missed a very important step. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, that's okay. Yeah, it's important to remember to make sure that when you generate the bibliography that you choose that it copies to clipboard so that you can have that output method as the correct method for pasting into a document. Of course, you could use these other output methods if you were doing something different, but for the purposes of a citation or an article or a poster, those are the ones that you want.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So another way that you can use Zotero for your documents is to use the Zotero header in Word. And so when you installed Zotero, it should have put this little tab on your word processor. And what you can do is you can just kind of like type along and say your stuff and, you know, whatever you're going to do. And then you can go into add edit citation. And what it'll do is it will bring up some options for you to choose. I'm going to go ahead and choose AMA this time so we can see kind of what that looks like. And you can see here that there are the recommended fields, and it also gives you some options here for updating citations, and particularly important here, using the Medline journal abbreviations, because AMA uses journal abbreviations and it automatically defaults to these. You just want to make sure that that box is clicked for the journal citations. So you can go ahead and go okay, and then it'll bring up this little bar for you. So what I like to do is kind of have my Word document open and then have my little bar in front, and then, you know, whatever it is that I'm going to use to retrieve the article I want to cite. Say I want to cite an article. I know I have a bunch of research about women in my folder right now, so I'm going to just go ahead and do that. But you could bring up by author, by keyword, by tag, whatever works for you. And you can go ahead and do that. And then you enter, and then it will create your footnote. If you were to go to the beginning of your sentence, so, you know, say that you're a grad student and your advisor gets back to you and says, hey, I want you to add like 4 paragraphs up above here about X, Y, and Z. So you'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to say some more stuff about theory and practice and smart stuff and everything that our grad students do. And then you're going to add in more citations. And this is the thing for AMA and other footnote styles that makes these things so nice. You don't have to go back and renumber all of your footnotes. So you can go here, add and edit that particular citation, and you can add more than one citation as well. So for example, say that I wanted to bring up some articles about information literacy. and I'm going to do that one, and then I'm going to do some more about that. You can enter more than one, so you can kind of load up all the citations that you want to include into that particular bar, and then it'll enter them for you. So then you just go ahead and enter, and notice that it formats your footnotes, and then it updated the one that was later in the paper to be in the correct numerical order.
And this is just such a wonderful thing for all of the styles that use the numbering system, because it's really a pain to have to do that manually.
Once you have that little Zotero tab, then you can insert the citations by doing the add edit citation, and it'll bring up that little bar. And like I said, it kind of floats around to you, so you can decide how you want to arrange that as you're writing. And then I like to have my bibliography visible while I'm working. So what I will often do is go to add edit bibliography, and it will generate the bibliography for me based on the citations that I've already entered. Now, of course, you can do this at any point during your writing process.
Oops, there we go.
And then it'll create the bibliography for you. Now, if you were typing along and then saying, more stuff, then doing another citation. Oh, that's going to take too long to bring up. It's my default area here because I know I have a lot of research on that. So you could then go ahead and enter, anything else that you wanted. So I'll go ahead and do that citation. And then when I added it, you'll notice that it added in that new citation and then created my bibliography. And if you want to make sure that it is reflecting any changes. So for example, say we were working in APA and I noticed that this should be in headline case, not or in sentence case, not headline case. I could go to my Zotero library. I could make sure that my settings are all set up there, and then I could refresh, and then it'll go in and double check the citations as they exist in my library, and then update.
And the nice thing is that you were starting the paper thinking it was an AMA, and then you find out that you're supposed to be using APA. So
you can go to your document preferences, and then you can see your options are here. You go ahead and do that, and then do OK, and it will completely update your document, which is also really nice if you prefer to work in one citation style, but your professor would like you to have it submitted in another, or you're working on a citation or a paper for a journal, for example, and it's in a citation style you're not used to working in. It makes it very easy to update, which is nice. One thing I will say about this before we take a quick look at Google Docs for using Zotero there is I've played around with this just a little bit, but I haven't seen, with those of you that may have heard of or you've used EndNote before may have found that using it with the thesis template that's provided through the Graduate Writing Center, sometimes EndNote and the template would fight really bad because it wants to put your bibliography in a certain place and all kinds of things. It seems to be doing okay with Zotero, but if you're noticing that it's being real funky, what you can do is you can go ahead and unlink citations. And then what this will do is you'll notice that when we're using these citations through Zotero, it's kind of graying them out because Zotero is in charge. But now when I go through and then unlink my citations, it will create a new version of my it would create a new version of my document, and then it would create that version being plain text. So your document wouldn't be connected to Zotero anymore. And that's also really nice if you need to email the document to someone, you want to unlink it before you submit it to a journal, send it to a professor, that kind of thing.
But I would save it a version that is still connected in case you need to go back and then make edits.
Yes.
So if you need to change anything with the citations, it's easier to do it in the version that's still connected. Otherwise, especially with the numbering system, you have to go through everything.
So I usually have two versions of the document, one that's Zotero connected and one that's just plain text. And I work in the Zotero connected document and then update the plain text one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a quick look at Google Docs, because more and more students have shared with us that they are using Google Docs, especially especially because it helps for being able to share their thesis with their advisors while they're writing collaboratively, or if they're doing a group project or a group paper. So one of the things about Zotero that's really nice is it integrates with Google Docs. And so once you've installed Zotero and the connector, you should also see the Zotero add-on here on your ribbon for Google Docs. And it works basically the same way as it does in Word, where you would just be typing along and saying stuff. And then you would go to enter your citation by clicking on Zotero and then add edit citation. And then it will give you that little bar. Where did my bar go? It will give you a bar and it will put it somewhere that I don't see at the moment, but I guess it wants me to.
Yes, it tends to log you out at inopportune times.
Okay, there we go. So again, let's go ahead and just do a real basic search for citations here. I can go ahead and choose my citation and hit enter. And then it'll go ahead and add it into my document. You can go back to that little ribbon and then add edit bibliography, and then it will create the bibliography for you as well.
So the choices are still there. The main difference is that in Word, you get the little toolbar with the icons, and you have a drop-down menu in Google Docs with the document preferences where you choose your citation style, and then the add edit options, refresh, unlink.
And in case anybody is wondering, so for the citation style like AMA that uses numbering that we talked about how it'll renumber for you according to your citation styles and how you're moving them around and things like that. The same is true for APA in terms of, knowing when to do the et al. And alphabetically organizing your works cited list. So, for example, if you move something around and things like that, it will reorder your bibliography so that it's alphabetical, which is the correct way for APA. Okay, I think, let me just check my notes here really quickly. I think one other really important thing I want to mention about this, especially for folks that might be watching the video, don't forget to go to the guide and look at the directions on how to sync your library. And the important thing about this is that it creates an account for your Zotero information, and then it backs it up to a cloud-based or web-based version of Zotero. So then when you're in Zotero and you're doing all of your information, it's here under preferences. And I noticed it's under edit preferences for Mac folks, I'm sorry, for PC folks. There's this little sync option on your preferences, and you can see that there's a sync automatically and sync full text content. Just make sure that you have this set up. If you don't have an account already created, it'll prompt you to create an account here. It'll take you to zotero.org where you can then create your account and you can log in. But then once you put your account information in here, it'll set up a sync for you. Notice the little sync button is here. It will sync automatically every time you add something new. If you're worried about it not having sync, maybe you just brought a bunch of stuff in and then you have to go, you're going to close your window out, you can just hit that button and then it'll go ahead and do your sync for you. And then when you go to zotero.org and log in, all of your library information will be available digitally here. And you can see there's all of my groups and it's all organized. And then here's all of my information. And it's similar for folks who are doing shared libraries or shared groups. So in my Zotero library, I have a group of citations that I share with a group of colleagues. And you go here, you can see all of the groups. And then this is really nice because in my Zotero, I can go into my different citing settings and make sure that I have it set up for the groups that I'm a member of. And then I can add more people to the information. I can add in more citations, and then any of my collaborators can add in their information as well. So they could add in citations about, whatever it is that we're working on together. And then through my Zotero online library, it will sync to my Zotero desktop and we can share information that way. So it's a really nice tool for collaborating and shared research and writing.
Yeah. So setting up your Zotero online account will let you sync, will let you do your shared groups, and we'll let you, what was that other one? Oh, look at your library online versus if you don't have your laptop with you and you want to go into somebody else's and look at some citations or add some citations. So create your Zotero online account and you'll be able to do a few more things here.
Perfect.
Okay.
Well, thank you both for your time. This has been really helpful. Now, I guess, at least for me, it's a little bit of hands-on playing to see what I can do and what mistakes I'll make along the way. But on behalf of the Masters of Public Health program, thank you both for your time. And we'll definitely be following up with you when we have a specific questions, like the little issue that I run into having the Zotero link in Word. I'm sure that there'll be other things coming down the road. So
Yes.
thank you again.